In the great river of my own awareness, having watched the currents of human nature from both eastern and western shores, I have begun to notice a certain music. Melodies that repeat across the grand theater of cultures, echoing through the halls of generations, and in every quiet corner of life. And while one hesitates to speak in fixed terms, for life is a current, far too fluid and alive for the nets of our rigid definitions, there are indeed certain eddies in the human spirit that one must learn to navigate with a quiet awareness. This is not born of judgment, you see, but from a place of deep seeing, from a kind of wisdom. It comes from understanding the dance of the mind and the subtle games we all play, often while in a deep sleep, not even realizing we are part of the game. Now, when I speak of a certain watchfulness around these patterns, I do not for a moment suggest you meet them with the crashing waves of hostility or contempt. What I mean, rather, is that you must see them as they are in a light free from illusion, free from the wishful dream that they will suddenly become something other than what their nature is. You must perceive their essence as you would perceive the essence of fire or the vast, deep ocean. The fire burns not because it is malevolent, but because its nature is to burn. And so, to expect the fire not to warm you as you touch it is not an act of compassion. It is a profound misunderstanding. So let us gently examine these 7 patterns, and as I describe them, you may see a reflection of someone you know. You may even catch a glimpse of your own face in the mirror. For we all contain the whole drama, and we each step into these roles at various times in the play. The fundamental question is, are we awake to the part we are playing? Are we caught in the dance, believing it is all there is, or can we see it and perhaps choose a new step? The first of these patterns we might observe is the one I call the perpetual victim. This is the soul for whom responsibility is a distant shore they have never visited. For them, the story of their life is always authored by external winds, by the hands of other people, by perceived cruelty, a roll of cosmic dice, or some great injustice. They have an answer for every fall, for every faded hope, every broken bond, and in each telling they are the blameless center. Now, let us be clear, the tide of life brings with it very real sorrow. We all feel the sting of loss, the weight of hardship, the shadow of betrayal. This is the rhythm of existence in a world of constant flow and impermanence. But the perpetual victim has taken this flowing river of sorrow and turned it into a frozen identity. They wear their scars like a crown. They have built the very house of their self upon the ground of being wronged, of being a reflection unseen, of being a wave misunderstood by the shore. And let us gently inquire why, for you cannot build a lasting bridge to such a soul. They will, in time, see in you the shadow of an oppressor. It is the nature of their dream. For the story they tell themselves requires a villain to be complete, a reason for the rain to fall. At first, you may appear as the sun, the one who truly sees them, the one whose light will finally warm them. But as the seasons of time turn, you will make a simple gesture, a quiet and unintended ripple, which they will perceive as a tidal wave of betrayal. And in that moment, you become another ghost in their gallery of sorrows, just another verse in the long, repeating melody of their misfortune. The one who lives in this perpetual winter cannot embrace their own part in the frost, and a person who cannot see their own reflection in the water cannot be a trusted guide. And why is this? Because they are asleep to their own role in the weaving of their reality. They do not hear the recurring notes in their own song, the echoes of their own choices, the way their own perspective colors the world. And if they cannot see their part in yesterday's tides, how can you trust that they will navigate tomorrow's waters any differently? Furthermore, this pattern will feel like pouring your own life's river into a desert. Their thirst for your energy, your quiet compassion, your presence will be endless, for what they truly seek is not healing, but a mirror to validate the story of their wounds. They do not want a way out of the maze. An exit would threaten the identity of the one who is lost. What is longed for is an echo, a voice to agree that the cosmos is chaos, and they are its blameless center. I remember sitting with a man once who spoke of his journey through life, and he told me he had been let down by every soul he called a friend, deceived by every partner in his ventures, and left by every woman he had opened his heart to. And as he spoke, he wore his history like a crown of thorns, as if this long parade of goodbyes was a testament to his own profound character, a solitary candle flickering in a faithless world. And so I asked, in all these currents of farewell, did you ever pause to consider your own way of swimming in the river? He looked at me, and the stillness in his eyes was shattered. The question was a sound he could not hear, for it felt like a wave threatening the very sandcastle of the self. Then there is another dance, the one performed by the weaver of subtle threads. This energy is harder to perceive at first because the weaver is often charming, a masterful musician of human feeling. They do not command with overt force, but guide with the gentle pressure of emotion, with the subtle music of guilt, and the quiet ache to be needed. For them, life is not a dance, but a game to be won. Each moment is a calculated move on the board, a habit so deep it flows unnoticed, like breathing. To perceive the one who pulls the strings, you must first notice the subtle currents in your own heart. Does a feeling of obligation linger in their wake? Do you find your own river diverted, flowing in ways you never intended? They know the secret melodies of the heart. They may sigh, "Oh, do not trouble yourself for my sake. I will be quite all right alone." Or they will unroll the long scroll of past kindnesses to bind you to their will. You cannot rest in their waters, for their connections are built upon a hidden reef of purpose. Their kindness is a sun with conditions, and every favor they offer casts a long shadow of debt. I once knew a soul who could make you feel a profound sense of privilege just for easing her way. She would never ask you directly. A gentle sigh would simply ripple through the air, a mention of life's contrary currents, and before you knew it, you were rowing her boat for her as she smiled and gave thanks. The true sorrow of this pattern is that one never forms a true connection. There is only the performance, the endless calculation, and the steering of the play, surrounded by an audience, yet utterly alone in the silence. The third pattern of the mind to observe is the one we might call the righteous warrior. This is the person who is utterly convinced they hold the one true map of reality. They have discovered the final truth, whether it is a vision of the cosmos, a design for society, a philosophy of the body, or a perfect moral compass, and now they are on a great journey to convert the world. Now, to hold a conviction is not the problem. To feel a passion for what you see as true is not the issue. The difficulty arises with absolute, unshakable certainty, the complete closing of the door to doubt, the total fusion of the self with the idea. The righteous warrior does not simply hold a belief. They have become the belief itself. Any question of their idea is felt as a tremor in the foundation of their being. These souls are a curious storm because they are willing to place anything and anyone upon the altar of their cause. The dance of human relationship, the flow of compassion, even truth's own reflection becomes secondary to the mission. They draw a sharp line in the sand, dividing the world into the awakened and the dreaming, the saved and the lost, the pure and the sullied. And they place themselves, of course, firmly on the side of the righteous. The righteous warrior cannot be trusted to see the whole picture, for at their core, they are out of tune with the present moment, even if they are unaware of the dissonance. They do not seek the dance of shared understanding, but rather to draw you into their own tightly choreographed play. When they appear to offer you silence, they are not truly listening to the music of your being. They are simply waiting for a pause in the rhythm, already composing their own melody in reply, already weaving what you say into a pattern that was decided long ago. I recall, in the dance of sharing ideas from the East, encountering many such currents of thought. Some would arrive not with an open hand, but with a fist already clenched around a conclusion, certain that a single path was the final map, asking only that I confirm its lines for them. And when I would gently suggest that the landscape is vast, with countless trails leading to the same mountain, that the wonder of the mist is more profound than the certainty of the summit, a deep disquiet would stir within them. You see, I was not offering them the echo they sought, the perfect reflection of their own constructed reality. The one who carries a banner of absolute truth is often running from a shadow, the shadow of uncertainty. They fear the great, silent ocean of existence and the quiet whisper of their own inner tides. And so they build a fortress of belief, a rigid structure of thought, to shield themselves from the magnificent yet terrifying freedom of the open sky, and they cling to this system. They hold to its walls with a desperate grip, for to let go is to face the silent, star-filled void. And in this you cannot place your trust, for they will eventually ask you to live inside their fortress too. A time will surely dawn when the music of your connection, the dance of your relationship, is measured only by how well you follow their prescribed steps and echo their worldview. And if you choose your own rhythm, you cease to be a fellow dancer and become the discordant note, the fog that obscures their light. And now, a fourth kind of shadow, the one who lives in a house of mirrors. This pattern seems so clear on the surface, yet its depths are a shimmering, deceptive pool. The weaver of illusions is not merely one who paints false pictures in bold, obvious strokes. They are those for whom the very current of truth has ceased to flow. Reality is a river they try to bend. It becomes a shape to be molded for the fleeting moment. And they do not deal only in shadows. Often they weave threads of pure light into their tapestry of illusion, and this is the source of their subtle power. They dance between reality and fantasy so gracefully that you are left to wonder where the dream ends and the waking world begins. But what truly sets them apart from the occasional teller of tales? It is their profound disconnection from the very music of what is. For within them, there is no sense of dissonance when the song of life is sung out of tune. The illusion becomes their very breath, and as time flows on, they can become lost within the very dream they have woven. To trust one who weaves illusions is to build a home on the surface of a flowing river. Their very self is a shimmering reflection, changing its form with every new gaze. Without a ground of truth, there is no real self, and no true meeting. All that remains is a play of shadows, a mask that changes with the wind, which you can never glimpse behind. And this brings us to the fifth pattern of being. We may call this one the user, the soul who sees others not as fellow dancers, but as instruments for their own music. A warmth radiates from them when they have need of you, but a sudden winter arrives when they do not. Their affection is a coin, not a current. Their sense of loyalty is a shadow that stretches only as long as you provide the light. Now, in the great dance, all relationships contain a certain rhythm of mutual benefit. This in itself is the natural way of things. We are waves helping other waves reach the shore. We support each other's journey. We are an exchange of energy. But the user distorts this natural dance. They hold no true curiosity for the being that is you. They are not concerned with your inner weather, your own growth, your quiet joys, except in the way these things might serve the purpose for which they see you. The user is often quite gifted in the art of making you feel seen. When they need you, they can be a mirror of perfect attention, reflecting your value back to you with wonderful praise. They understand how to make you feel like the center of the world. But simply watch what happens when the nectar they sought has been gathered, or when you are no longer a garden in which something they desire can grow. All at once, a silence falls. Your words, sent out across the water, find no echo. Their time becomes a fortress, always too occupied for your presence. And if your paths should cross, you are met with a polite but distant shore, as their eyes are already scanning the horizon for a new ship to board. I am reminded of a gentleman I knew many years ago who moved within an extraordinary web of connections. He seemed to be a friend to all, and all the world seemed to be a friend to him. But if one watched quietly, a pattern emerged. He would attach himself to those who were rising, like a vine to a strong tree, and for a season he would cultivate this connection with great intensity. He would draw from it whatever he could, new pathways, opened doors, reflected light, and then, when the harvest was done, he would quietly float onward to the next promising shore. Those he had used would later speak of him with a puzzled sort of ache, unable to name the nature of the transaction, but feeling somehow that the tide had gone out, taking a little of the coastline with it. You cannot find rest in the presence of a user, because their warmth is entirely conditional. The very moment you cease to be a useful current in their river by a change in your own circumstances, or in theirs, or when the well of your utility runs dry in their eyes, you are simply set aside. And in this, there is no ripple of remorse, for in their world, this is the natural order of things, where people are but instruments to be used, not mysteries to be treasured. This way of being reflects a deep inner emptiness. They drift through the river of life, endlessly drawing from it, yet never merging with its current. They gather names as a collector gathers stones, but know no true companionship. The world may grant them treasures, but they reside in a silent desert of their own design, a mirage of company, where they are profoundly and completely alone. The sixth pattern is the shadow that envies the light, the person who cannot witness another's joy without a sense of pain. If they cannot hold the light you carry, they would prefer to see it extinguished. For this envy is not the desire to have, but the urge to unmake. This pattern often wears the mask of sincere concern, or what is called honest feedback. They will find the crack in the vase, forecast the coming storm, or paint your triumphs in muted colors, insisting they are only reflecting reality. Yet, to be in their presence is not to feel grounded, but to feel your own light flicker, to feel diminished and emptied of certainty. This shadow is most potent when it is near, for its envy is often a dream of which the dreamer is unaware. They may truly believe they wish you well, but under the surface of their mind, a quiet current pulls for your descent. One recalls a story of a man whose companion would conjure a storm each time a sunbeam touched his life, calling for aid, and thus drawing him back into the shadows with them. It was a long passage of time before he realized his friend could not bear to stand in another's light. One cannot rest in this presence, for your own brilliance is a mirror to their pain, and a soul in pain often strikes the mirror. The seventh and final form is what one might call the weaver of storms. This is the being around whom tempests seem to gather, a constant whirlwind of drama and urgency. Their existence is a sea of constant motion. Always, there is a crisis on the horizon, always a wave about to crash, some grand and terrible drama playing out. And through some curious gravity, they draw others into their vortex. Now, the river of life has its rapids for everyone. The universe is not always a gentle dance, and at times we all find ourselves in a true storm, not of our own making. But the weaver of storms is another matter entirely. For this soul, chaos is not a passing guest. It has taken up permanent residence. It is their very atmosphere, the strange comfort of the familiar storm, and perhaps the mask they have mistaken for their face. The soul who trades in chaos weaves drama, for they have come to mistake intensity for the feeling of being alive. To such a person, the quiet pool of calm feels like a void, and the stillness of peace resembles a great emptiness. They have danced so long in the storm that they have forgotten how to walk in the quiet sunlight. And so, when the waters of life begin to clear, when the rhythm becomes steady and calm, They stir the surface from within, unknowingly creating a new wave, a new conflict. A sudden choice is made. A problem is conjured from the stillness, where a moment before, there was only peace. To be in the presence of such a being is to feel a constant drain, for they are a whirlwind of their own making. All that is near is drawn into their tempest, and you may believe you are offering a helping hand, assisting them navigate the storm, but in truth, you are merely feeding the wind that sustains it. You offer the very energy, the very intensity their restless spirit craves, and in so doing, you deepen the riverbed of their habitual patterns. I recall a soul who would reach out across the wires at all hours, always adrift in a sea of urgency, her dwelling place under a constant threat of being swept away. She felt the currents of injustice in her work and the turning tides of loyalty within her own family. The vessel of her body felt fragile, and always there was the immediate need for counsel, for support, for rescue. For a season, I attempted to be a lighthouse in her storm, but soon the pattern began to reveal itself. That as one wave of crisis would crest and fall, another was already rising to take its place. The very instant one act of the play concluded, the curtain would rise on the next. It was a curious dance, a script she seemed to follow, moving from one turbulence to the next with a strange, predictable rhythm. One cannot find a firm footing with such a soul, for their nature is to draw you into their own swirling waters. The fire of their urgency will inevitably become your own fire to put out. Their theater of struggle becomes your stage, and your own existence, which may have been a quiet stream, is suddenly transformed into a tumultuous and wearying river. Furthermore, one cannot lean on the weaver of chaos for that which requires a steady hand or a constant heart. Promises drift away like smoke, for their world is a perpetual whirlwind, leaving no room for stillness. They cannot offer you shelter in your own storm, for they are forever lost in the center of their own. And so the dance of relationship becomes a solitary performance, where your river of energy flows out and their ocean only receives. And so we arrive at the heart of it. The question is not whether such currents of personality exist in the great ocean of being. Clearly they do. The real inquiry is this: do we possess the clarity to see these patterns for what they are, the inner fortitude, to accept the truth reflected in the mirror, and the quiet dignity to choose our own course? This is not the hardening of a heart, but the clearing of a mirror. And this clarity is perhaps the deepest compassion we can offer, first to our own being, and then, as a ripple, to the world around us.